Greetings and welcome to another Grenfell Media Watch update. Today's edition I want to call Lessons Not Learned. And I'm going to start with what is becoming a sad occurrence on a weekly basis with another fire in a tower block, this time in Hampstead, where a woman lost her life. Now we don't know whether this was through cladding or through failure to install sprinklers, but we do know that there was a couple who said that they were only alive because they were watching an extra episode of Stranger Things, and that meant that they was up at like 1:45 in the morning and were able to hear the calls from a neighbour telling everyone to get out. Now this is called Lessons Not Learned because this is not an uncommon tale. This keeps on happening, yet politicians keep using that phrase that we're going to learn lessons, and they deliberately, and I said deliberately, choose not to. You see, in 1999 there was a tower block fire in Scotland. The cladding that was on the building accelerated the growth of the fire, and within 10 minutes many floors were engulfed in flames. Now one man lost his life, and the government there decided to do something quite radical, something quite righteous. They passed real regulation. It took some 6 years. I think they wrote it into Parliament or into their books in 2003, and it became live 2005. But they wrote that cladding must inhibit fire. Now, if the politicians in Westminster had actually followed suit, what that would have meant was that many of those in Grenfell would probably still be here alive today. You see, Grenfell residents had already approved a zinc-based cladding that was fire resistant, but that decision was overturned by the TMO in place of the aluminium cladding, the one that was actually flammable. And this was done purely on a cost basis. You've probably heard all this before, but you need to understand that this was an ideological decision. But there had been a precedent set across the UK to actually use cladding that inhibited fire, not accelerated it. Now, there's a wonderful documentary made by, is it Redfish, called Failed by the State. And they kind of explain what this really means.
If we all continue to stand and make the noise and not shut people out, we can change this community.
We need to realise that collectively we have real power, real power to shape our destinies and to be artisans of our fate.
Now today Sky News is going to broadcast its investigation into the plastics industry. It's going to expose how they lobbied government, how they threatened those experts who talked about the lack of safety in its materials. But where was Sky News? Where were BBC London? Where were all these media organisations when the Grenfell bloggers were actually warning about the massacre taking place 6 months before it actually happened? Where was their support then? And why is the government and the inquiry ignoring submissions from the Royal Institute of British Architects? These are the experts that you would have thought would have been perfect core participants for the inquiry. But once again, it seems that there are powerful interests already at play before the reports are even finished. Perhaps RIBA are being excluded because of recommendations they are making which they believe will save people's lives. But perhaps then I'm being too cynical. Perhaps I should be ignoring the reports on the London Fire Brigade that are saying that there are tower blocks that are in urgent need of emergency action. Perhaps next week I'll be talking about another tower block fire that took place, this time not just one life, not just 2 lives, but perhaps even more. So when I hear about the budget's 28 million allocated to regeneration and mental health services, yeah, well, that borough has money, and all it needs to do is do its job properly. If we really want to talk about how that 28 million pounds should be used, put it in the hands of the community. Now, I for one would never deny that there's a need for more resources in mental health services, but that 28 million pounds would probably be better off put in the hands of the community. So instead of regeneration experts coming in and gentrifying the area, that the community itself can protect its public assets. And I'm talking about places like Wellington College. I've heard they've been granted a 10-year stay of execution, but 10 years is going to go in the blink of an eye. I'm talking about the North Kensington Library. I'm talking about the many community spaces underneath the flyover, those such as Acklam Village. Last week there was a story about meeting the boys from Grenfell, and these are the young minds that are still struggling. Less than 5 years ago, Kensington and Chelsea had the highest population of people suffering from mental health issues. They had a life expectancy of those living in the 1950s. So we shouldn't forget politicians like Matthew Palmer, who was checking his shares while the borough was having an urgent discussion about cuts to mental health services, still serve in the council. They still have authority, they still have power. And the young boys who are covered in that wonderful story, who talk about how those that they know are missing aren't mentioned in the media. Those that they know who are missing are somehow absent, like they're in the upside down. This is when reported news doesn't match reality, causes problems in the minds of young people. And so I'm going to sign off. And yes, that is the sound of me being childish, kicking the autumn leaves around. And I'm going to say, may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. I know it's serious business here, but please allow me. Ashe.